Straight up. The King. Welcome to Way Happy Prophecy Update. We're way happy prophecy here on CUBN. We want to see you be encouraged in Jesus' name. I'm Lisa Dennis Sparks, and we are on our verse by verse study through the New Testament. We started at Matthew, and now we're in Hebrews. And first off, we're going to go ahead and do our Way Happy Prophecy update. There's a lot of things going on in the world that we need to talk about. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad to see you, all of you on YouTube and Facebook and the network and the website. Welcome to all of you. If you want to come into the chat room, it's easiest for me to see your comments from YouTube. And so if I'm going to monitor Facebook as well as soon as I can find it here. But I'm glad to have you regardless of the medium you're watching through. Let's go ahead and look and see what's going on in the world from Prophecy Update News. From the Jerusalem Post, Israel prepares for weeks of military and international tension. That's from jpost.com. Wreckage. The IDF preps for renewed Hamas-instigated Gaza riots. That's from Breitbart.com. Hamas chief says riots mark start of our return to all of Palestine. That's Breitbart.com. Wishful thinking on his part, isn't it? At least 25 Gazans said injured in renewed border clashes. That's from the Times of Israel.com. You know, if they would it amazes me how much condemnation Israel's coming under for protecting their own borders. You have thousands of people who were rushing Israel's borders. I think that it's just a miracle that not even 50 people were killed. That's amazing. There were 25 injured and less than that killed. Out of thousands who are rushing the border, I think that is just really showing restraint on Israel's part, because there is no country in the world who is going to sit there and do nothing when thousands of people rush their borders. If you rush the borders of a country that is not your own, they are going to shoot you. That is common knowledge. But the world wants Israel to not do anything when thousands of Palestinians rush their borders. It's just hypocrisy in one of its purest forms, seriously. Abbas says Israel is fully responsible for Gaza aggression and death of Palestinians. That's just ridiculous. He's actually responsible for agitating it. Iran slams savage massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. YNetNews.com. Iran slams savage massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. Iran is the most ruthless regime on the planet. and they point a finger saying a savage massacre has occurred. They kill people on a daily basis, slaughter them for no reason at all. And do you think that Iran would not respond if thousands of people rushed their borders? They certainly would. They'd shoot them all. So they're a bunch of hypocrites in Iran. Okay. Then we have Hamas warning of surprises with more Gaza riots. They just want to keep on going, don't they? This is from Breitbart.com. Hamas was caught using cover of protesters to attack Israel. These people have no honor, no sense of honor whatsoever. They are going to use protesters as a cover for their attack. They will put their people right out in front to protect themselves. Who does that? Usually your protectors stand in front of the people. Who needs protectors? Who needs enemies when you've got protectors like Hamas? Hamas leader tells Gazans, no making peace with the enemy. That's from ynetnews.com. They want to use these poor people that are in such pain and poverty and put them out there as targets. Egypt and Jordan condemn Israel's use of force against Gaza protesters. That's from the J Post. And Egypt and Jordan, they know better, than that they would have to do the same if 17,000 people rushed their borders. The Arab League is to discuss the Israeli massacre in Gaza. Hi, Kay. I'm glad to see you, honey. Good to see you there. Okay. Now, that's ridiculous. They're going to discuss the Israeli massacre in Gaza. U.S. blocks UN resolution condemning Israel over violent riots on the Gaza border. That's from Breitbart.com. Palestinian Authority calls Nikki Haley ambassador of hatred. Breitbart.com again. You got to laugh because it's so ridiculous. Erdogan, you are a terrorist. Netanyahu says you are a butcher. That's from the jpost.com. Netanyahu says Turkey's in no position to lecture the world's most moral army over violent Gaza clashes. That's from RT.com. Saudi's crown prince says Iran's supreme leader makes Hitler look good. That's from the Atlantic.com. Turkey and Russia deepen ties amid troubled relations with the West. That's from the Chicago Tribune.com. Putin launches the Satan II nuclear missile again and boasts of invulnerable arsenal. That's from FoxNews.com. NATO braces for Putin's next military move in Eastern Europe. That's from ProphecyNewsWatch.com. North Korea is preparing for 7th nuclear test days after Kim's visit in China. That's from the JapanTimes.com. Incoming U.S. National Security Advisor fears North Korea is buying time. That's from Breitbart.com. China is building goodwill in Pakistan as U.S.-Pakistan relationship hits a rough spot. That's from Breitbart.com. And we're not even going to go over all these quakes and volcanoes. There's a ton of them. Whole list. Whole long list. Severe flooding from tropical cyclone Josie kills 4 in Fiji. That's from AccuWeather.com. Wow. Okay. London murder rate set for 13-year high after 31st stabbing death. Surpasses New York. From theguardian.com. Cell phone radiation causes tumors to grow in rats. That's from the pittsburgh.cbslocal.com. New mind reading technology recreates digital images of what you're thinking. That's from Newsweek.com. Wow. He is killing her. He is killing her. Indian Christian brutally murdered for leaving Hinduism. That's from one.cubn.com. I'm sorry, cbn.com. Barley harvested in preparation for Third Temple wave offering. That's from breakingisraelnews.com. So they have done the barley harvest. 100,000 people take part in priestly blessing at the Western Wall. That's from the Jerusalem Post. Famous rabbi sees Trump rebuilding temple, sees it as final historic reparation for his entire nation. That's from worldnewsdaily.com. How about that? Let's go over here to Rapture Ready. Rapture Ready News. The world goes for Israel's throat. Okay. If the 30,000 Palestinians were allowed to cross these borders instead of dead terrorists, we would have had dead Israelis. Would the world be more satisfied? All the hypocrites of the world are now at Israel's throat. The satrap Erdogan, or Erdogan, as they call him in the Middle East, who slaughters the Kurds, who invades Afrin, who persecutes Christians, and who occupies Cyprus, has the nerve to accuse Israel of terrorism in Gaza. At least 289 and more likely 500 people have been killed since Turkey launched its jihad against Afrin, and Erdogan allows himself to give ethical lessons to Israel. But in some perverse way, it says, well, let me just go. That's pretty long. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. Now, here's one thing. It says Israel has the right to use force to defend its citizens and borders from terrorists. Hamas has killed hundreds of unarmed Israeli civilians. Hamas has launched thousands of missiles on Israeli cities. Hamas has unleashed 3 wars against Israel in 10 years. And Hamas has transformed Gaza into an Afghanistan on the Mediterranean. And this is why Europe has included Hamas in the terrorist list. Go figure. I mean, the world wants Israel's throat, okay? And it has nothing to do with the land. It has nothing to do with anything, the media. All it has to do with is good and evil. God is dividing the light from the darkness. Israel's on one side, and then the rest of the world is on the other side, jealous of their inheritance, and they do not want them to exist. If Israel, a very precious Arab brother was asking the Muslims, his own people, he was saying, if you were to get rid of Israel, what then? Where would you direct your hatred then? And that's really rings very true, is they have a hatred inside them that would never be appeased. Even if they were to totally get rid of Israel, their hatred would never be appeased. So they just need somebody to direct it toward. Now, we've got a hole in the sun's atmosphere that lashed Earth with high-speed solar wind in mid-March, turning to face our planet again. It's emerging over the sun's eastern limb following a 2-week transit around the far side of the sun. We've got a lot of signs in the sun, moon, and stars going on. Israel's Netanyahu scraps African migrant relocation deal with the UN. Netanyahu said on Tuesday he was canceling an agreement with the UN refugee agency to relocate thousands of African migrants, bowing to right-wing pressure to scrap the deal. So they're not going to, they are not going to accept a bunch of African migrants. Now, the Saudi crown prince has said Israel has the right to exist in peace. In an interview with The Atlantic, the young reform-minded Mohammed bin Salman says Israelis and Palestinians have the right to exist in their own land, denies his country has a problem with Jews or anti-Semitism, and says Iran's supreme leader makes Hitler look good. Trump threatens to end NAFTA foreign aid unless immigrant caravan is stopped. The big caravan of people from Honduras now coming across Mexico and heading to our weak laws border had better be stopped before it gets there. Cash cow NAFTA is in play, as is foreign aid to Honduras and the countries that allow this to happen. Congress must act now on this. It's really turning into a mess there. Now, it says here, an imam, that's a Muslim priest, was shot dead in front of his mosque in the Israeli Arab city of el-Fam Tuesday morning, the latest killing in a community where radical Islamist movements have grown in size and influence in recent years. And the radicals among the Muslims will kill the moderates. They don't want any moderate Muslims. They want everybody to be radical. U.S. opens door to possible Trump-Putin White House meeting. That's a possibility. Let's see. The Saudi king reiterates his support for Palestinians after his really out there Israeli comments. Now, he reiterated Saudi Arabia's support for a Palestinian state after his son and heir apparent said Israelis were entitled to live peacefully on their own land, a rare statement by an Arab leader. The king also emphasized the need to advance the peace process in a phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday night, made after demonstrations along the Israel-Gaza border. Indonesia declares a state of emergency as oil spill spreads. This oil spills off the coast of the island of Borneo. At least 4 fishermen in the port city of Balikpapan were killed over the weekend when the fuel ignited. Hundreds of people have reported health issues since Saturday's spill. As the oil slick continues to spread, the risk of further fires is increasing, Indonesian authorities said on Tuesday. And speaking of ocean pollution, it's really sad how Fukushima is really doing a number on the Pacific and everything it connects with. So that one is really, really bad already. And as the trumpet judgments come along, you're going to have a dozen more Fukushimas out there that are going to finish off the oceans in a very short period of time. Let's see. Now Mexico says it will disband the caravan. Mexico's National Institute of Immigration said late Monday it plans by Wednesday to disband a caravan of hundreds of Central American migrants that's been traveling through Mexico for 9 days. Caravan organizers said, however, they expect at least some of the migrants to continue north to the U.S. border. They estimate that most of them will seek asylum or some type of protection in Mexico or the U.S. These people are really suffering down there, but the problem is when they come in to Mexico or the U.S., they are bringing in diseases that our population has not had to deal with and have not been vaccinated against. And that's bad for them and for the citizens. Gas prices are on the rise. Let's see. This says university event aims to combat Christian privilege. Were you aware there's Christian privilege? Just 4 days after Easter, George Washington University will host a training session for students and faculty that teaches that Christians, especially white ones, receive unmerited perks from institutions and systems all across our country. The April 5th diversity workshop is titled Christian Privilege. Christian Privilege, but our founding fathers were all Christian, right? That's ridiculous. I've never heard of anybody receiving unmerited perks for being a Christian. No. Now, from other Christians, yes, other Christians will show us favor, but not some university. That's never going to happen. Now, this says, armed with tires and mirrors, Palestinians renew their Gaza border protests. Well, some of this I really don't. Now, Iraq's Christians, this is really alarming. 80% have disappeared from Iraq. Now, that's really, says tragically, Christians living in lands formerly under the control of the caliphate have been betrayed by many in the West. Governments ignored their tragic fate. And first it was Confederate monuments, now statues offensive to Native Americans are poised to topple across the U.S. Nobody's offended, but they want to invent offense, and they want to invent offense. Sorry, my nose is itching. It only itches when I'm on TV. Oh, get this. This is so funny. I love this, actually. This is good news. Mississippi Church votes to leave the UMC over failure to uphold Scripture, abortion, homosexuality, resurrection, and Christ's divinity. So now the First United Methodist Church of Louisville, Mississippi, has overwhelmingly voted to withdraw the congregation's membership from the UMC denomination. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This church is proving themselves faithful by telling, the wicked religious leaders are those at the highest levels of organized religion. And I'm so proud of this church for telling the UMC to take a hike in all of their ridiculous compromise of the Word of God and his standards. So glory to the King as we see a faithful church stand up and tell their parent organization to take a hike. They are going to stand and they're proving themselves faithful. So rock on, First United Methodist of Louisville, Mississippi. That's great. I talk about that a lot on my Facebook wall, especially how the churches are compromising. You just can't. You can't. And this one is showing how to prove yourself faithful, sometimes you have to disconnect from that parent organization in order to stay faithful. Now this says, Facebook now bans image of Jesus on the cross. An image of the San Damiano cross showing Jesus in glory, reigning from his cruciform throne, has been rejected by Facebook because of its shocking content. It's just shocking. Okay. The UK has given $28,300,000 to Palestinian schools glorifying jihad and Islamic martyrdom. How can they do that? You don't want to teach kids that they want to grow up and commit suicide and kill people. What kind of a school is it? Wreckage. Let's see. Let me see what's going on. Let me see what kind of time I've got here. Now, Netanyahu says that thousands of African migrants in Israel will be resettled in several Western countries, including Canada, Germany, and Italy, under a new agreement reached with the UN Refugee Agency, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday. See, Israel is only 9 miles wide at its most narrow point. You can't just put thousands and thousands of refugees in there that are not Jewish, that are not among the Jewish people. Now, a top Israeli rabbi believes that Trump will build the third temple in Jerusalem. A prominent Israeli rabbi believes the reason for this unprecedented, at least in modern times, shift is that Trump has a big role to play in the building of the third temple and the coming Messiah. Wow. Let's see. Trump says no more DACA deal. He's referring to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. He said Sunday that he'll no longer work with Democrats to hammer out a deal to provide legal status to hundreds of thousands of Dreamers, illegal aliens who were brought to the U.S. as children. No more DACA deal, Trump wrote, referring to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the immigration policy that provides legal status to what they're calling the Dreamers. And I mentioned earlier in the update that 100,000 people took part in the priestly blessing at the Western Wall. Wow. 100,000 people. They were everywhere. I've been right there to the Western Wall complex, and that's a lot of people to be in that complex. They were everywhere. You couldn't cram another single person into that courtyard, and they were just overflowing everywhere. They are wanting to rebuild their temple. Mossad chiefs debate whether Israel ever clarified the borders to the Palestinians. Former Mossad chiefs are in agreement in saying Israel must do more to actively resolve the conflict with the Palestinians, but they disagree about whether Israel has made a final offer on settling borders. What is this? Let's see. Oh. Okay. Boko Haram attack, more than a dozen dead in Maiduguri. And China is hitting back with tariffs on U.S. imports worth $3 billion. China's space lab, the Tiangong-1, came down over the South Pacific. And so it has now crash landed in the water, thankfully. So at least nobody's going to get that on their head. That's very good that it came down. Now you had about 75 students at Rockledge High School in Central Florida walked out of class in support of the Second Amendment on Friday. The students say they felt silenced last week when students walked out in support of gun control. We're going to take a quick break.